Alright, so this is this week's project performance report. From what I understand, this week is mostly just making a YouTube video just to show that we can get one set up, show it, submit it to you. So I'll keep this relatively short and simple. I'll also be keeping it short and simple because, full disclosure, uh, this is the third time recording this. In case you haven't noticed from the darkness behind me, there is a storm going on. Now, so project performance report, accomplishments for this reporting period. We've done the project design phase, we've done system analysis phase, we've been getting our boots and teeth into the system design phase. We've been testing Python and various news APIs. Most news APIs, free versions, only go back a limited amount of time. For instance, one only went back 30 days, Google's only went back 3 to 4 years. But unfortunately, this project requires us to go back quite a while, a good couple decades. So we ended up settling for New York Times API as it's well documented, covers the date ranges required, and of course it's free. Aside from that information, we've also decided on the Python modules that will be used. We've also been able to roughly get a US map in PNG format going from Excel data. As far as the graphing information goes, we've been using Matplotlib, but Plotly so far seems like it's going to be a more viable option, so we might pivot into using that instead. Accomplishments planned but not yet completed during this reporting period are we want to include poverty rate as well. Statista has that information available, but at cost, which is not not exactly the best, but that'll just have to be dealt with. We also need to figure out some variances in the data and various other anomalies. So, impact on upcoming milestones. In original discussions with the Lilly Foundation for Philanthropy, they indicated that it would be interesting to see how poverty, unemployment, and education may correlate to human needs. We've currently got unemployment integrated, poverty is nearly integrated. Unfortunately, we haven't been too focused on education. Information for that hasn't been exactly readily available yet, and it's kind of scope creep including it at this point. We may come back to that and see about including it if we're ahead of schedule enough to allow for scope expansion. Summary of upcoming tasks. Main highlight here is just that for the coming week, we'll be working on cleaning the data, validating it, as well as data visualization. Yep. And if we're able to be ahead of schedule, we'll move forward to the next set of tasks early. And accomplishments planned for the next reporting period are to identify and download data for unemployment and poverty by state and year, clean up the data in the H&I table. For instance, some state names are spelled incorrectly, some are spelled out completely, some are using abbreviation. that all needs to be cleaned up and standardized. We'll also be determining as the first set of database work gets into action, we'll be figuring out if Excel is the best way to handle this, or if we should go forward with a SQL solution. This is just I forgot the word for it, a template, sorry, template. Down here, we've got from contact with the Lilly Philanthropy team, we've got the data set of H&I data already. We've done a bit of testing on this data to, test out scripts, test out stat analysis. And here we've got a rough bar graph in LibreOffice selecting the state of Alabama, year 2021, all 12 months. And this one is the unemployment rate. Next one is the H&I for Alabama 2021. And next one is a comparison version where both are overlaid onto the same graph. Might need to look into a way to better integrate the data so it can better coexist in a combined fashion, but that will have to come during the following week. And this is just summarizing that looks like bar chart will be a reasonable approach going forward. We've got an account on Python Anywhere where we've basically started up the absolute bare bones of a site and have been testing the news API, and that means we can go ahead and, assuming the storm isn't interrupting with internet connection, this is the site in its current state. As you can tell, very bare bones. We're just using it to test that things are functioning. So we're going to search up Katrina 2005 and location Louisiana, and this should, give us some news results. So when we get this all polished up, it will look better, possibly be in its own little box rather than breaking out into an entirely different thing. Because down here is a rough format of, like a rough draft of the format of the website. So of course, website title, top of it, front and center, nice and pretty. Description of purpose, rundown of how the site and its tools work, description of what's being shown, what can be interpreted, that good information, as well as descriptions of where the data comes from, credit to the sources, links to the organizations that the data was sourced from. Next up is a section to select gear and possibly other selections to narrow down and customize the next part, which is in the current plan, it's 2 US maps, but we might make it 1 US map that can contextually switch around. But basically, the map would display H&I values superimposed over corresponding states, and also use a color gradient for user convenience. And the secondary one would just be unemployment instead. Unemployment or poverty, that is. which is why we're kind of thinking if we can maybe integrate them into one and then being able to click, okay, I want the H&I map, okay, I want the poverty map, okay, I want the unemployment map, rather than just having three maps. We're hoping to try and make it just one map that you can swap around between. Then underneath that, dynamic charts, where a user can select data and have a chart generated to visualize that data for them. For instance, selecting a state and its year to see the data of the state for that year, sort of like what was shown in the previous document with Alabama's data. Then also static charts beneath that, which would be highlights of the data in its sum totality. For instance, nationwide averages for each year, or comparison of historic all-time lows versus all-time highs. Then underneath that, the New York Times article search tool section, header for it, describing instructions, how to use it, the intent, what it can do, all that good stuff. So essentially a person can look around and go, oh, Louisiana, there was a huge H&I spike in 2005, so I'm going to come down here and I'm going to look up Louisiana in 2005 and try to find relevant news articles to try and contextualize the data. And ideally, I'd have it in a display box where you could scroll down in the display box rather than shunting you over to a different page. No promises though as of yet. Still have to figure out exactly how everything will be done and, get it all concrete and polished. And then, of course, finally a footer for the site with extraneous info, acknowledgements, formal citations, all that good stuff. And that should be it. Thank you for coming here.